boys and girls, Doug Giles here. It's Warriors, Rich.
And Wildmen. What's happening, Doug?
Had a strange friend request or follower request on Instagram today. I put all my accounts on. Yeah, I put all my accounts on private. Everybody's
when
"Well,
did you do that? When did you do that?
Probably about 2 months ago."
Doug, about a month ago, I went and put all my accounts on private except Warriors and Wildmen. I did the same.
Yeah, so I've got got some trolls, just doing stupid troll shit. And I don't have time for it. I just have zero time. And it's like, can you explain this? What about this? What about this? What about that? If you're a minister, how come you have an elaborate home? It's like, I'm also a businessman. And I didn't know that I was limited in the accoutrements that my home houses because I preach the gospel. How about you pull up your tithe record for the last, I don't know, Rich, 30 years, 40 years, and I'll pull up and I'll pull up mine, and we'll see who gives more to preaching of the gospel, you dipshit. And you know why I preach from my iPad all the time, Rich?
Why?
I cuss too much. I have a problem. I was baptized in dirty water, and sometimes I got a little potty mouth. And but I don't gossip about people. I don't slander them. I don't listen to it. I don't divulge it. I just drop some blue words every now and then. Where were we going with this? Anyway, the troll on Instagram. Yeah, so the Instagram person, it's like, I'm not letting anybody in who's not connected to serious people that I know that are in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
it's not just these loosey-goosey folks, followers that when I had it open as a free-for-all, but if you're not connected to somebody that I know, trust, and love, you're freaking not getting in. And I don't care if it limits my brand, Rich, because you guys know that God can brand you and promote you, and you don't need any social media platforms.
That's right.
All right, so I'm derailing, man. What's the topic?
Well, we're talking about mission, why the church, and why you personally should be involved in mission. And I'll just start off on a little thing about our trip that we just did. We just went to Indonesia. I've been going to Indonesia for more than 20 years. To Bali.
Now that's east of here, right?
Yeah, Indonesia is north of Australia. So Australia on the other side of the world. Indonesia is up towards the equator, and about a 4.5-hour flight from Sydney, Australia. That'll give you an idea. And it stretches all the way. I mean, it's Southeast Asia. It stretches, it's 13,500 islands and 300 million people. So it's the fourth largest country in the world, population.
Can you drive there?
You cannot. It only took us 41 hours with our layovers and stuff to get there. One was a 15-hour layover in the Philippines airport, which we couldn't leave, and that was terrible. So it's a long ways to get there, jet lag, everything else. And so we were getting ready to go. We've been planning this trip for a couple months. Annie and myself, and then Matt and Alicia, another couple that are pastors at our church, we were going to go train some pastors. And I made sure everybody's passports were good. Everything was good. And then the day before we left, I pulled out my passport. I was writing something down, and my passport was expired.
Good Lord, man. So
I literally almost threw up. I freaked out.
How can you turn that around real quick? Did you meet some sketchy dude in Yuma who forged some docs and got you on your way?
My son's wife, Miranda, my daughter-in-law, she started calling passport agencies. We were going crazy. Everybody's freaking out. I'm trying not to be sick because I've never done anything like that in my life. I don't even know how to act. And we got the next flight, though, if I missed the Saturday night flight, which I wasn't making that one. The next flight was Wednesday night. So I had to try to figure out how to get a passport between Friday and Wednesday. And it was Friday at probably 4 or 5 o'clock. So Miranda found a place and got me an appointment on Tuesday morning. And so it was in Tucson. So I had to get everything ready, and I drove over there and paid all this money and went in and boom, 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 boom. So by some miracle, everything went perfectly, flawlessly. I ended up with my passport, and I was Wednesday, so I was 4 days behind. Here's the problem. I got there the night that the pastor's training ended. And so there was, how many people?
25 pastors.
25 pastor couples. and some leaders from there in Bali. And I said to Annie, I said, do you think you can lead this? And she wasn't planning on that or prepared for that. But the great thing is the topic of it was our encounter retreat and how to do the encounter and to help them to experience an encounter. That's Annie's specialty. Like, she's been doing that for years in our church. That's another thing I want to tell you guys. Look, don't get lost in the story. Let this apply to you. Man, I want to go on missions. A guy told me that one day. I want to go on missions. I said, great, you're going tomorrow. What are you going to say? He said, I'll think of something. I said, you're not going. Missions isn't for somebody to think of something. Missions is for someone who has something to say. You're not going there for an experience. You're going there to impart something. Will it affect you and impact you? Of course it will. But if you're not making a greater impact than what you're receiving, you're the wrong person. We need to send somebody else. So
yeah, I think the majority of Americans shouldn't export themselves at all.
No. Well, Pastor Cesar would say that if it doesn't work here, please don't export it.
Right. They're too expensive, and they don't have squat to say, normally.
Yes.
I got this dude, man, Rich, and I hate to say this, but he's a quote unquote missionary. He lives in frickin' retardville, third world place, first world luxury, insane. He's got servants. He's got, he lives in this ridiculous. And again, I'm not against people, prospering at all, but he's not really rocking the world where he's at. But oh my God, man, he's got some sweet digs in a faraway place, that he calls mission work. And I think he goes out like on Saturday, kind of like takes a handful of tracks and throws them at a bunch of poor Mexicans and stuff. But oh my God, man, he's got a beautiful hacienda.
Think about traditional American missionaries, not the old school guys, the guys now. They send them to school and they train them. The best and the brightest stay here and build big churches. The ones who can't, the ones that are awkward, the ones that have no social skills, they become missionaries.
Send them. Right.
Yeah, and then what they do is they never overcame the culture that they were raised in, but now they're supposed to overcome another culture and make an impact. It makes no sense. Why do we keep the best and the brightest here in America? Because we want them to build our brand, our church, and our money. We should be sending the best and the brightest to the ends of the earth, because I don't think Jesus is interested in another mega church as much as he's interested in the conversion of people in America, but around the world. And there's a famous quote, no one should hear the gospel twice before everyone's had a chance to hear it once. And Indonesia is the largest and last frontier. There are some places, but Indonesia is the place, bro. Like, this place is remote, largest Muslim nation by population. So anyway, Annie went over there with Matt and Alicia. She led it, figured it out, ripped it up. It was an awesome conference. The pastors were happy. But we had to ask if the pastors wanted Annie to lead it, because I wasn't going, because of culture. It doesn't matter right, wrong, what you think. If they don't want to hear it, don't waste your time, right? And they said they did. And so it went great. So I got to go there, and I met with the pastor that's our friend and his family. We all went to dinner on Saturday night. And then on Sunday night, I met with the pastors in the church and got to minister to them and stuff. And that was cool. But even more than that, we were there looking and planning and plotting and scheming and getting vision for what we're going to do in the future. It was amazing, bro. It's amazing. When you have that mindset, it's a different attitude. It's a different atmosphere, right? These people need to get saved. We're over here trying to figure out how I can buy my fourth or fifth car or the next toy that I want to play with or the next trip. Good, fair enough. You know what? Give to missions. Am I trying to take up an offering right now? No, I'm not. I want you to give to missions. Find a good mission, either a program, an organization, or a person to invest in. Don't just go, well, I just, give $5 in the bucket at my church on their mission offering once a month. That's stupid, man. That's a waste. You got to be smart when you sow. Farmers don't drive down the road throwing seeds out the window. They find the right ground, they cultivate it, prep it. They sow that seed, so they're getting a great return. So now I'm all fired up anyway, so I'm mad now.
Yeah, man, I think every young person, that's what I kind of dig about the Mormons. Like, listen, we're going to toss you 2 by 2, and we're going to put you in a slingshot and fling you out into outer space just to get because a lot of Christians like, man, my Christianity's so boring. It's like, hey, dude, you're single. Okay?
You haven't tried it.
So I tell you what wouldn't be boring. Go work with, I forget the dude's name. Go work with the guy who's preaching the gospel in Syria. That would be
Yeah.
exciting, you know? How about go to Cairo and help the Coptic Christians spread the word there? I
Yep.
guarantee there would not be a dull moment. Why don't you do some Hudson Taylor CT stud type stuff and go into China and do some inland missions? Not in Hong Kong. Just slip on through and get into the interior and do that. Probably never see you again, but I guarantee you won't say that your life, is freaking boring. And
Yeah. Well, Mormonism
so
is. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, so when I got real sick of the American church, like pretty quick. Once I get converted, it's like I've never been before. It's like, what is this place? Like, eesh, all they're concerned about is prosperity and Jesus make me rich. And
Yeah.
so it was jail ministry, concert ministry, street ministry, preaching, juvenile detention centers, just anything that had teeth, anything that had that was reality based instead of just the hot tub religion, BS and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I did it, and I met a missionary through some kind of connect, and he went down to Mexico, the state of Nayarit, tail end of the Sierra Madre, with Youth with a Mission, and so Canadian dude hooks up with YWAM in L.A., goes down to state of Nayarit, and they did like a 2-week, month-long stint and stuff. And he said, I'm not getting back on the bus. I'm not going back to LA. Well, you have to go back to LA. We're going to get in trouble if you don't come back with the team. It's like, I'm not going. God called me to stick right here. He's like 25. And so anyway, he found out that the Core and the Huichol tribes are these unreached people group that are in the that part of the Sierra Madre and stuff. And so he grew his hair like the Indians. He put on duds like they wear, kind of gi outfits, short kind of capri pants and stuff. And when the rains would come in the summer, you're not going home. You're not traveling anywhere. You're landlocked because those rivers are raging in those massive valleys and stuff. And so, long story short, I don't know if he's alive or dead, but I tell you what, he would just kind of just show up like every 2 years, knocking on the door. Then I had a landscaping company back then. He'd work his ass off and then poof, disappear. Yep. And he worked with the Wycliffe Bible translators.
Oh yeah.
First of all, they developed the language because the Core and the Huichol dialects weren't even a written language back then. So they developed the characters for that, and then they go into translating, Galatians and other kind of chunks of the scripture. Dude, he did all that stuff in like 5 years.
Yep.
And so he would come back and he would tell his stories, and everybody's like, "Does anybody have a testimony?" And people's like, "Well, God healed the corn on my toe. Well, God gave me, new sales for my insurance company, and I got a blue ribbon." And it's like, Mike, it's like, well, I was nearly murdered with a machete when I tumbled into a marijuana and heroin field that the federales were growing deep, deep, deep in the Mexican jungle. And then I went over to this group of Indians who had a vision that this white dude is going to tell them about the Great Spirit in the sky, and the whole village got converted and filled with the Holy Spirit. And then I went to work when I connected with Wycliffe in New York City and translating the scripture. Yeah. Dude, that's a freaking story, man.
Yeah,
and I'm
man,
getting
absolutely.
goosebumps. I'm getting goosebumps. I've got some horripilation right now, Rich. Yeah. Just telling you about and that's just another manic Monday for this missionary. And you know what? I'm guessing, Rich, he's probably dead.
Maybe. Some of those guys just live and live and live. They just won't die.
Yeah, they were after him so hard that he was on this trail, and he's off the trail. He knew that they were after them. And again, most of it's the federales. It's not, the locals, because they're the ones that got the big, poppy fields and marijuana fields and stuff. He said that they were standing right in front of him, and there's just like these palmetto blades that are blocking him from them. And he said he was so terrified he shit his pants.
Whoa.
He just crapped his pants. And he said they're right there, like where the camera is, right here.
Yeah.
And so they, Great dude, but you know what? I would rather live his life. And again, I'm not saying he's dead. I can't find him online. I can't find him on social media. Can't find any trace of this dude. So he could be alive or dead. But you know what? It was a life well spent, and he plowed into a lot of people, kind of like the whole John Elliott type thing.
Yeah.
Jim Elliott,
Jim Elliott,
with the Aka Indians. Anyway,
Yeah,
I'm
so
yarbling too much, bro.
we were talking about the Mormons. The Mormons is not a good religion, but their plan of
No,
sending their kids out for 2 years to do mission before they even go to university is brilliant. They raise money for it. It's awesome. That's a great plan. I would love to see Christians do that with their kids. I've sent my kids around the world. Three of my kids. My oldest daughter, Brooke, I sent her to Bogota, Colombia. She lived there for 3 months with pastor friends of mine. Then she went to South Africa, to Pretoria, lived there for 3 months. She was 16 years old. And then she went to Bali, Indonesia, lived with the pastors there for 3 months. And then she ended up in the Philippines and lived there for 3 months. So she's 16 years old, doing homeschool online by herself, traveling around the world. And when she was in Philippines, they asked her to preach at a conference. And she looked terrible because her hair was rat's nest because she just got back from Bali and not really, it's just a whole different life, right? So I paid for her literally $400 it took to get her hair squared away.
good Lord, man.
Got her hair squared away, got her an outfit, and she preached to 10,000 people at 16 years old in the Philippines. And she got 23 invitations to preach at churches all over the Philippines. She wasn't able to do it because
Yeah, see, we don't
she was
we
getting
don't
ready
get
to
that
come home.
we don't get that kind of stuff, Rich.
No, and so
No.
and so rich
I
people
preach
send
a-
their
I
kids
preach-
to prep school. Rich people send their kids to prep school so they can be senators and presidents and everything else, right? And I thought, you know what? Poor people keep their kids at home like puppies for their emotional well-being. And then I thought, well, I don't have money to send my kids to prep school, but I have friends around the world. So I sent my daughter around the world. And then my next two kids, Becca and Levi, when they were 16 or 17, I sent them to Philippines, and they both lived in two different homes and went to a private school in the Philippines for 9 months. And it impacted them greatly. I wasn't able to send Luke because, long story, but Luke didn't get to go do it. But I'll tell you what, it makes a difference. So back to Indonesia. When you go to Indonesia, Muslim country, the government, formerly a Muslim country. Bali, the island of Bali, is the only island of Hindus there. And so that's a Hindu island. Hindus are very nice to other religions, and Christians are the nicest people you've ever met in your entire life. You meet them, they want to know how many kids you have, they want to know how old they are, and they'll tell you about their family, and they're very sincere. They mean it. They are sincerely some of the most incredible people you'll ever meet are in Bali. The problem is if a Balinese person, a Hindu, converts to Christianity, the other Hindus will burn them and their family to the ground. And so the persecution is against people who convert, not against Christians. So there'd be no danger for me when I'm there, but there's danger for the people who convert, right? So that's just on the island of Bali. But when you go around the islands, there's all these different religions. Doug, there's literally still headhunters there. Cannibals are there. And then I met a woman of maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and she told me the American missionaries taught my dad 3 things, my grandfather, 3 things, right? So you're not talking about hundreds of years ago. You're talking about recent. They taught him to worship one God, to wear clothes, and don't eat your enemies.
There you go, man.
Well, when I
It's kind of like the
Doug,
Book of Acts. It's
Right.
like stop fornication, don't drink blood.
right,
and don't eat things
meat
sacrificed
to idols.
devils.
That's
and
exactly, that's where they got that. So my question is, what was the list of 20 things that got reduced to 10, that got reduced to 3? What was number 4 and number 5? That's what I want to know, because when you go, hey, man, guys, we got to throw don't eat your enemies in there, right? So that's still happening there. And there's major persecution going on in Indonesia. It's not something that's uncommon for them to grab the pastor and his family out of church, drag him on the steps of the church, and hack the pastor and his family into pieces with a machete in front of the congregation. And that's the Muslims doing that. And so that's happening in Indonesia right now. Not once, not twice, regular occurrence that's happening there. And so it's probably the greatest and last frontier for missions. Why aren't people there? You want to know why they're not doing missions to the islands, Doug? Because there's no money there. and it's really freaking hard and dangerous. So you got churches, Hillsong disbanded. Good, so I'm going to use their name. Wonderful. Those guys flew right over Indonesia and went to all the places in Southeast Asia and went to Europe and went to America to plant churches. And they flew over. They're the closest country. Well, I guess Philippines and Singapore is close too, depending. But I mean, they're the closest major country. They flew right over. They didn't even go. Why?
Shocker.
There's no money.
There's no Justin Bieber there, man. There's
Yep.
no Justin Bieber. Hey, do you think Hillsong should change their name to Hillsung?
Well, I know that they bailed
Like
on
in the
their
past
founder,
tense?
and I hate that. Yeah, I like it. Hillsung, their last
Right.
song. Yeah, so Indonesia is the greatest. Man, we're making a difference there. I'll tell you what. So like I said, we've been going there 20 years training the underground church how to do cell groups. In April, we're going to be training 1,000 pastors and their wives. 1,000 pastors and their wives. Got to think about the impact of that. And so we're going to be raising money for that in this next year. Like I said, I'm not trying to raise money here. If anybody's interested, just email me. But we're raising money for that, and we're going to train those 1,000 pastors. But we're not just going to train them, Doug. Over the next 10 years, we're going to train them to train others who can train others and train others. It's not the beginning of let's have some meetings. It's the beginning of a movement. We did it in the Philippines, and in about 13 years, we trained 7,000 churches in how to do cell groups. And we're going to do it in Indonesia. And a lot of people are partnering with us, ministers and stuff, to get it done. We're going to make it happen. You got to care about mission, man. You can't care about, we need new chairs for the sanctuary. Okay, get chairs. Take up a mission offering. We need to do the kids wing, and we need a youth pastor for $120,000 a year. Great. Okay, give some money to mission. Do something for mission. I'm not saying don't do that. Do both. Every time you do something, think about mission. I'm not saying we shouldn't have our churches nice. We're doing upgrades at our church right now, but we're also doing mission. And not just your church, but you personally get involved in mission. If you can't go, which if you go, that's good. But if you're not called and gifted to go and do it, then you need to give to mission, because mission is God's heart. That is God's heart, is that every person would know about Jesus and have a chance to be saved. Every person.
Matthew 28, buddy. So
Let's
what's
go.
the Warrior and Wildmen listener supposed to do besides frickin' get on the mission?
They need to listen to my paraphrase of Mark chapter 16. Everybody going everywhere, telling everyone. That's what it says. That's gospel right there. Go to warriorsandwildmen.com. Subscribe. It's free. We'll hit you up with a couple emails a week, let you know what's happening. Keep listening to the podcast wherever you like to listen to podcasts, but make sure you subscribe. Also, if you want to help support the ministry, that's how we do it here. Go to the War Chest. It's tax deductible. When you give your gift, we'll send you the information on that. For those that are doing it, you are making it happen. Warriors and Wild Men out.